Well, today we're continuing a series that we're in, and it kind of is a series that you might say started before Lent, is going to end before Lent is done. Sometimes we have a nice little series that is just Lent. But this one got started before Lent, and it's going to go through Palm Sunday, and then we're going to kick off Holy Week in a great way on Palm Sunday, April 13th. So the series is on the Beatitudes. What are the Beatitudes? The Beatitudes are teachings of Jesus that begin his Sermon on the Mount. Matthew was a gospel writer. He was also a follower, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, and Matthew records Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And many of the teachings in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount are repeated throughout the Gospels, not just in Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, but throughout the Gospel, other places. And so the Beatitudes kick off Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, their attitudes to live by, the way to a blessed life, and the values of kind of an upside-down kingdom way of living. A young boy approaches his pastor one day and says to his pastor, "Pastor, why can't I see God? Why can't I see God?" And the pastor smiles and says, "Son, the purer your heart becomes, the clearer God will be." The purer your heart becomes, the clearer God will be. Jesus said it like this in Matthew 5, 8, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." This beatitude is a promise. It's a reward. Those who are pure in heart will see God. What does that mean? What does it mean to be pure in heart? And what does it mean? How do we see God? Well, before we go there, let's do a little refresh. Each of these Beatitudes, there are 9 of them, begin with the word blessed. And the Greek word in the New Testament here, which is what the language of the New Testament primarily, a little Aramaic sprinkled in, is the Greek word makarios, which means blessed or happy. Could be translated happy, but not in a kind of surface happiness that we think of happy because of what's happening in our lives. No, not happiness based on what is happening, not happiness based on our circumstances, but an inner joy. It's experiencing God's divine favor, a sense of well-being and wholeness. Divine favor, blessing are coming to those who have a pure heart. And as Jesus kicks off this section of the Sermon on the Mount with the Beatitudes, he said in verse 3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." Divine favor and blessing are coming to the poor in spirit. What we talked about, those who are humble, those who totally recognize their need for God. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn. We talked about the fact that those who mourn over the loss of a loved one, those who mourn their own sin and brokenness, those who mourn the brokenness and dysfunction and fracturing of our world, those who mourn, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, those who have strength, but strength that's harnessed. That's what meekness is. Meekness is not weakness. To be meek is to have strength, but it's under control. It's harnessed, like water behind the dam, power, but it's harnessed. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, those who have a desire, a hunger to know God and to be in right relationship with God and right relationship with others. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, that they will be filled, they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Pastor Patricia did a great job of this last Sunday unpacking blessed are the merciful. What does that mean? Wendy and I were in Dallas with our family for a couple of birthday parties, and she did a great job explaining mercy, to be kind and tenderhearted and compassionate, to be forgiving of others, to put yourself in another person's skin to understand where they're at and to have mercy upon them, to extend mercy, and they blessed are the merciful, they will receive mercy. What you give comes back to you. In other words, if you give mercy, you're going to receive mercy. Withhold, and it be withheld from you. And then today, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Again, divine favor and blessing are coming to those who follow these upside down kingdom values of Jesus. Let's break it down. What does it mean to be pure in heart? Again, from the New Testament, the original language of the New Testament, Greek, the word here is katharos. Katharos. The ancestor of our words catharsis or cathartic. Catharsis, cathartic, from the Greek word katharos. So what is catharsis? What does that mean? What does katharos mean? It means a cleansing of emotions, expression of emotions, a cleansing of emotions, and the mind. So it's really interesting because there are two distinct meanings of the word katharos. If you were to look in a dictionary today, online, or old school, you'd find 2 or 3 different definitions of many different words. So there are 2 distinct definitions of the word katharos here. One is to be cleansed from dirt, filth, or contamination. To be cleansed from dirt, filth, contamination. The Greeks in the first century used this word to describe soiled clothing that had been washed. Soiled clothing that had been washed. The Greeks used this word in the first century to describe grain that had been winnowed and sifted to get rid of all chaff. The Greeks used the same word to describe metals that had been refined by a fire, to get rid of all impurities, to be free from all impurities. And it's interesting, the Greeks used this word to describe an army that had been purged of all discontented, cowardly, and ineffective leaders. And so if you put all the various usages of this word together, each usage adds to the meaning of pure. The meaning of what Jesus was trying to communicate when he said, blessed are the pure in heart, those who are washed clean, those who have been winnowed and sifted, free from chaff, those who have been refined by fire, free from impurities, those who have been purged of all discontentment and cowardice and ineffectiveness. Blessed are the pure in heart, those folks will see God. Then the second distinct definition, which has some overlap to it, is to be unmixed. The word katharos means to be unmixed, having no double allegiance, single-minded. To be unmixed, like without alloys, like we just talked about, free from alloys, to be unmixed, no double allegiance, but single-minded. The basic idea here is that of singleness of heart. The basic idea is that of integrity as opposed to duplicity or having a divided heart. David the psalmist prays, God, give me an undivided heart. Give me an undivided heart that I might fear your name. So this idea is of singleness of heart and mind. Another characteristic you could say of singleness of heart and mind is the idea of integrity, the idea of sincerity, being sincere. Sincerity is an interesting word. It comes from the 2 Latin words, sine cera. Sine cera, sine without cera, wax. Without wax, sine cera. Well, what does that mean? How is that sincerity? Well, in the ancient Roman world, devious, dishonest dealers in marble and pottery would conceal cracks in their marble and pottery or false cracks, holes with wax. with wax to cover it up. Honest dealers in marble and pottery in the first century would then display their products with the sign Sina Sera, without wax. Nothing's been covered up. Nothing's been masked with our pottery. And so the reference to sincerely is a person that is sincere is without wax, not trying to cover up, trying to mask for public performance or public appearance, really cracks and flaws of the real person. And so sincerely is to be without wax, but to be integrous with others, honest and open, not covering up, the pure in heart are without wax, the pure in heart. Don't try to cover up the faults. To be pure in heart, let me just say, is not to be morally perfect, okay? I mean, maybe we're striving for perfection, but we probably won't get there, right? Because we have faults, we have cracks. So it's not to be perfect, morally perfect. No one is morally perfect. If that were the standard, we'd all fall short. One man died and went to heaven and met St. Peter at the gate. And St. Peter said, "You can't get into heaven. You have told too many lies in your lifetime." And the man was kind of disappointed and said, "Well, hey, Peter, you got to understand, because you were a fisherman at one time, weren't you? Didn't you tell any little fish stories there, Pete?" Right? And so it's not to be morally perfect. The pure in heart are single-minded toward God. Single-minded, free from hypocrisy. The single-minded desire to please God at all times and everything, whether it's work or job, career, finances, relationships, church, community, to desire to have Jesus reign and rule in all that we do, to have Jesus reign and rule in our lives. And so if you put these two definitions of katharos together, what do you get? Merging these two understandings, these two definitions of kairos, you get to be washed clean, to be winnowed and sifted, free from chaff, to be refined by fire, to be purged of everything, and to have a single mind, to be unmixed, to be sincere, a person of integrity. That's what Jesus was saying when he talks about pure. Blessed are the pure in heart. So let me ask you this morning, how's your heart? I'm glad you're here this morning, because this gives us an opportunity as we go through this beautiful season of Lent, this reflective season of Lent, to examine our heart. So how's your heart this morning? Are there places in your heart that need cleansing, that need washing, that need purifying, that need winnowing, sifting, that need purging? How's your heart? Do you have an undivided heart toward God and everything? Are you fully aligned with Jesus as your Savior and Lord? Are you unmixed in your allegiance to Him? And is it evident in how you spend your time, and evident in your relationships, how you spend your finances? Is it evident in how you speak to other people? Is it evident how you treat other people? Is that unmixed heart, that aligned heart, that washed clean heart? How is it with your heart? Let me just read a couple of proverbs that talk about the heart. We're obviously not talking about this heart, physically heart, this heart that's beating within us. We're talking about the innermost part of our being. In Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, this is what wise Solomon says: "Above all else, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it." Guard your heart. Everything flows from your heart. Protect it. Guard it. And then in Proverbs chapter 21, verse 2, Solomon writes, people may be right in their own eyes, but the Lord examines their heart. They might be right, they might think they got everything covered up, waxed up, right? But God examines their heart. And then Proverbs chapter 27, verse 19. As a face is reflected in water, so the heart reflects the real person. The heart reflects the real person. So how is your heart? How is your inner state of being this morning? Max Lucado, a Christian author and writer, refers to the heart as, quote, the totality of the inner person. The heart is the seat of character, a freeway clover leaf where all emotions and prejudices and wisdom converge. The heart is a switch house that receives freight cars loaded with moods, emotions, and convictions and puts them on the right track. A switch house puts all those moods and emotions and convictions on the right track. Blessing and divine favor are coming to those who have a pure heart. A pure heart pursues holiness. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14, it says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone and be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. Now that first part of the verse might appear again next Sunday, because next Sunday we're working on a sermon on being a peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. But that's for next Sunday. This one, make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy, for without holiness, no one will see the Lord. There's again the vision of seeing God. No one will see the Lord without holiness, without purity of heart. So that's what it means to be pure in heart. So now the promise, now the reward, now the blessing, now the divine favor that comes to those who are pure in heart. What will be their reward? They will see God. What does that mean? What does it mean? Well, it's fair to say that the impure of heart are blinded to seeing God. It's fair to say that those who have an impure heart are blinded at really seeing God. Those that have not been washed, cleansed, purged, winnowed, free from chaff, free from impurities. Those who are double-minded, those who do not have an undivided heart toward God, those cannot see God. They don't have that blessing of seeing God. The pure heart sees God. So what does it mean to see God? Well, during the Last Supper, which we'll celebrate in a few weeks, there's this interesting encounter between Philip, one of the disciples of Jesus, and Jesus. And Philip expresses to Jesus that he wants to see God. Philip expresses to Jesus that he wants to see the Father. And so what does Jesus say in response? What does Jesus answer? In John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. Jesus answered, don't you know me, Philip? Even after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work. Believe me when I say this, that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Do you get it, Philip? Or at least believe on the evidence of the works themselves, the evidence of the works that they had seen in Jesus' life or the 3 years of his ministry, his teaching and healing and miracles. But believe in them. So, and there's another time when Jesus puts it really bluntly, as he did there to Philip. John chapter 10, verse 30, simply says, I and the Father are one. So Philip says, I want to see God the Father. And Jesus says, you're looking at him. You're looking at God, because I and the Father are one. We're united. So what does it mean to see God? It means to look at Jesus. Let's not make this too difficult, right? That's as simple as it is. If you want to see God, look at Jesus. And where do you see Jesus? You see Jesus in the Gospels. And what do you see in Jesus? As I mentioned, you see his healings and his miracles and his teachings. You see God there. You see his death and his resurrection, his suffering and crucifixion, then his glorious resurrection. You see Jesus, you're seeing God. That's why it's so important to read the Gospels. Like, how can we see God unless we're reading about God in the Gospels? And that's why 2 weeks ago, I issued the challenge. Some of you took me up on it. I know Ed took me up on it to read all 4 Gospels during the season of Lent. And I said 2 weeks ago, if you could read 2 chapters a day. Can you do 2 chapters a day? You'll read all 4 Gospels. And I know Ed and I, we're up to date, right? Through 28, 26, right about there. 28, awesome. And so if you're through 28, Matthew 28, which is the whole gospel, then you're up to date. So if you're too late, you're not too late. You can still do it. But from now until Easter, you got to read 3 chapters a day. And if you're not up for that, that's okay, but I invite you to be up for this. Could you read a chapter a day and read 1 gospel? Chapter a day, 1 gospel. Between now and Easter, 4 weeks. How many days is 4 weeks? 28 days. How many chapters in Matthew? 28. So read a chapter a day in Matthew, you get through all of Matthew. That's awesome. Because when you read the Gospels, you see God. So we say, well, I want to see God. Okay, read the Gospel of Matthew. And then you see God. That's what Jesus was saying. The Father and I are one. Jesus also said in Matthew chapter 25, very interestingly, not only does he talk about seeing me and you'll see God, but he says in Matthew 25 that we will see him, see God in the eyes of the poor, the hungry, the homeless, the sick, naked, and thirsty. Matthew 25, verse 31. When the Son of Man comes, Jesus is sharing this parable, referring to himself. He talks about the parable of the king. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right hand, and he'll put the goats on his left. When the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For, here is, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me." And then the righteous will answer, those on his right hand, and the sheep will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in? When, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? When did we do that?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Whatever you did for the least, you did for me. So where do we see God? In the least, the last, and the lost. And what we do for them, as we see God in them, we do for Jesus. What does it mean to see God? It means to look at Jesus and look at the least and the lost. And it also means to see God is to see him in our daily lives. To see God in our daily lives, to look for his presence and his work and his wisdom. We can see God in our daily lives in ways that the general populace cannot even imagine, cannot even fathom. Think of it this way. We see what we are conditioned to see. Try to follow me on this. We see what we are conditioned to see. We hear what we are conditioned to hear. An artist sees colors in a canvas that the untrained eye cannot see. A person who enjoys nature can hear things in the woods and by a stream that an untrained ear cannot hear. Have you ever been walking with someone and all of a sudden they say, "Hey, did you hear that?" You're like, "No. Stop. Listen." Oh. And all of a sudden, that's a bird. You hear the bird? Yeah, I hear the bird now. Or a frog, or crickets. Because the person who loves nature, the naturalist, the person who's out there has an ear trained and conditioned to hear. And an artist has an eye trained to see. And so we are conditioned, and maybe you have your examples, but we perceive what we have carefully trained ourselves to perceive. And so to see God is to have a spirit that is sensitive to God. To be pure in heart is to be sensitive to the movement of God, the whispers of God, the activity of God. To be pure in heart is to see the reality of God in a way that we never thought possible. You know, when many of you have been to Belize, I know Ed, Denise, Pam, Rick, and many others of you have been, Patricia, Garrett, you've been to Belize. And what do we do at the end of every day? We gather around at night. Gail and Wendy, you guys have been there. So many of you have been there. What do we do every night? We gather together, and this is the question: where did you see God today? Where did you see God today? Where did you see God at work? And in some of our richest times of the week, what was a God moment for you? When we talk about where we saw God, because our eyes, we try to train ourselves to see God, to perceive him at work. And then on Tuesday, every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, our worship team gathers, and the first question is, where did you see God on Sunday morning? Where'd you see God? You know, where'd you see God at work in worship? Maybe in a conversation, maybe in a hallway, maybe upstairs in the children's area, but where did you see God? Oh, you know, we try to brag on God. When we try to praise God and brag on God for where we saw him at work. We try to train our minds and our hearts to see God. And then at staff meeting at 11, when we have the whole staff together, we ask the same question: where did you see God? Come on, let's brag on God a little bit. What are your God moments? Where did you see God at work? And if we have a special event, like we are now with midweek Lenten services, we talk about that. Where did you see God during the Lenten worship? So we train ourselves, have eyes to see and ears to hear, to see God in our daily lives. Let's look for God in all of life. You know, here's my encouragement: look for God in the good times and look for God in the bad times. It's easy to dismiss God in the bad times. God doesn't dismiss us, and he just invites us to trust him through the darkness of the difficult times and to look for him, to look for his hand, to listen for him in the good and the bad circumstances of life. In nature, look for God in nature, look for God in the people around you, and you'll see God You could use that exercise with yourself, a personal exercise. Where did I see God today? Could be with your spouse, could be with your kids, could be with friends. Where did you see God this week? Where did you see God today? Good exercise. Pure in heart will see God. You might ask the question, well, does it really matter? Does it matter if I see God in life? Does anything else really matter? Does anything else really matter? Until we see God, life has no meaning. To go through life without seeing God is like someone who never hears the music or the harmony, only incessant noises, or worse yet, just obnoxious sounds. To go through life without seeing God. To go through life without seeing God in Jesus, revealed to us in Jesus and in the Gospels, and to go through life without seeing God in our everyday lives is to miss the whole point in this world and in the world to come. To miss out on God in heaven. Do you want to see God? Embrace this beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Be washed and sifted, sorted, purified, purged. Be undivided, unmixed, without alloy, giving your total allegiance to God through Jesus Christ in all things. There was a couple in Bakersfield, California, who bought a new boat. They never owned a boat before, but they were all excited they were going to buy a boat. And so because they never owned a boat before, they were kind of clueless about running a boat, what it took to run. They weren't going to race. They were just going to, get out there. And so the first day out, they're a little challenged. They seem to be having a problem. They can't really pick up much speed on their boat. They were promised more speed to this boat, but they can't pick up more speed. And so they try to check around. Everything seems to check. They can't figure out what's going on. So they decide to putter into a marina. They putter into the marina. A guy comes out, how can I help you? And they say, well, we just can't get this boat to pick up any speed. And so the guy checks around on the surface of the boat. Everything seems to be fine. The engine is fine. And the propeller is the correct size and the right pitch. And then another guy comes out and he jumps down into the water to check below the boat to see what's happening below the boat. And he immediately comes up spewing out water because he's been laughing so hard because that boat was still attached to the trailer. Now that's kind of a crazy story, right? I don't believe that story. It's hard to believe that story is even true, but here's what I know to be true. When God looks at our heart, below the surface of our life, He sees things that we're holding on to. He sees things that are pulling us down from being the person that God designed us to be. And preventing us from having a pure heart and preventing us from seeing God. And so He wants us to decouple from those things and to be what He wants us to be. He wants us to have a pure heart that will bring blessing and honoring His design for us and give us vision. So once again, where are you? How's your heart this morning? Well, where do you need to be cleansed? We could probably all identify one area where we need to be washed and cleansed. Maybe it's winnowed and sifted and sorted and purged. I invite you to pray the prayer of King David who said, "Create in me a clean heart, O God." We prayed that a couple weeks ago. We kicked off Lent. Create in me a clean heart, O God. Where are you undivided in your heart, in your walk with God? Where are you divided? Where is your heart not fully undivided? Where are you mixed in your allegiance to Jesus Christ? Then I invite you to pray the prayer of the psalmist also. It says, give me an undivided heart, O God, that I might fear your name. Where do you need to be washed and cleansed? Is your heart undivided? Will you pray with me? I want to see you, God. I want to see you in the life of Jesus in the Gospels. Help me to see you, God, in the life of Jesus in the Gospels, your healings and your miracles, your death and resurrection. I want to see you, God, in the least, the last, and the lost. I want to see you, God, in my daily life. Help me to train, be conditioned to see what you see, to hear you, God. I want to see you, God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Let's pray. Lord, I pray that you would just search below the surface of our lives. Help us, point out to us those things that are holding us down, pulling us down, preventing us from being what you designed us to be, preventing us from having a pure heart that we could see you, a pure heart that will bring blessing and divine favor to our lives. I pray in the quietness of your heart, maybe you can identify with the prayer of King David, who had fallen, sinned, and he prays, create in me a clean heart, O God. I invite you to make that your prayer today. I invite you to make it your prayer. King David also said, give me an undivided heart, O God, that I might fear your name. I invite you to pray that prayer today. Give me an undivided heart, O God, that I might fear your name, that I might honor you, worship you, revere you. Cleanse us, wash us, purge us, Lord, of those things that bring us down. Lift us up, Lord. Lord, we want to see you. We want to see and experience your love. We want to hear from you. We thank you for your son, Jesus, who came so we could see you, so we could see your work, your witness, your teachings. We could know that we could see you in the least and the lost, the last. Give us eyes to see this week, and give us ears to hear. In Jesus' precious name, amen.